Good morning, and welcome to all of you. My name is David Patterson. I have the great blessing of being employed at the Ackerman Center for Holocaust Studies and working with brilliant students and hosting world-renowned, internationally known scholars such as Dr. Dina Porat. Dina Porat is this year's Einspruch Lecturer. Yesterday, she delivered a riveting talk on, on issues of revenge following the Holocaust. Dr. Porat has served for 11 years as the chief historian at Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial and Research Center in Jerusalem. She worked for years at Tel Aviv University. She has lectured throughout the world. She has a new book coming out through Stanford University Press on November 1st called Nakam. Nakam is revenge. And it's about the Holocaust survivors seeking complete revenge and taking matters into their own hands. And Dr. Porat, as those of you know who were here yesterday, is an incredible storyteller. And she'll have you in the palm of her hand. So today we're going to speak about anti-Semitism. Another pleasant topic, but necessary to engage in our time, especially in the time that we're in now. Dr. Porat is an expert on this topic and has written and lectured on this topic many times. So please join me to welcome Dr. Dina Porat, please.
Thank you for coming so early. Indeed, yesterday we had a lecture and I was given a few gifts by the university. So today I'd like to reciprocate. And I brought Professor Patterson too. Why two? You have a room here, and you have a room at home, I guess.
I do. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are most welcome.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Tov.
Tov.
Okay. I'll open this to be sure it's here. Yeah. Yesterday I was standing, and when I ended after an hour and a half, I couldn't walk. So you'll excuse me for sitting down. Okay. You hear me now? Yes. Yeah, much better. Okay. So I excused myself for sitting down, and we can start. Oh. Okay. Our topic for today is the working definition of anti-Semitism, the copy of which I hope everyone has. Yeah, you were given handouts. Everyone has? I hope so. Yeah. So, why should we speak about the working definition of anti-Semitism? Because it so happens that today, these days, as we are speaking, during the last month, a few years, but it increases, there is a hot debate in the academic world, but also a public one, about the working definition of anti-Semitism. So it is a very, very much a permanent today's topic that is being dealt with, debated. The debate is fierce. It's even sometimes personal. And I'll get to that after introducing the working definition itself. So, first of all, I'll try to introduce this working definition shortly. Then I'll try to tell you how did it come about? When and where was this definition born? And why? Then we'll read together the most important parts, and then these parts that we will read, the examples, will definitely make us understand why it is today debatable. I wouldn't say, I don't think it's debatable, but why is it being debated today? Okay, so that's our plan for the next hour, and then you will have room for plenty of questions. Opa. So, it starts, as you see on the title, about the IHRA non-legally binding working definition. The IHRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. It is a body, a non-Jewish one, that has been created by the Prime Minister of Sweden in 2000. In 2000, a year before or something like that, he accompanied his son on a trip of their school, a Swedish school, not a Jewish one, to Auschwitz and to other camps. And he came back home feeling that the youngsters, the young generation in Sweden knows nothing. No, what's new about it? They don't know anything in other places as well. But he decided to do something about it. And on January 2000, he convened in Stockholm a huge conference, 45 heads of state, prime ministers, foreign ministers, academics, etc., all came to Sweden. I was there. It's January in Sweden. It was -18. You could break my nose and I wouldn't even feel it. I swore I'll never be again on such weather. Anyhow, we came from all over. It was a very successful conference, which marked the opening of the millennium, the new coming 1,000 years, with the idea of changing the attitude towards the Jewish people, towards the Holocaust, towards anti-Semitism, etc. And one of the results was the decision to establish an organization that would deal with the memory of the Holocaust. First, they called it the task force. Then the decision, the feeling was that it's a bit too military, a task force. And it changed into the IHRA, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Today, it includes 34 member countries. When it started, there were 5 in 2000, then 10. It developed, but I will not dwell a lot on the development because this is not our topic. Just know that it was founded in 2000, started with 5 member states, and today it has 34, and there are more knocking at the door. It has not only member states, but also observers. And the observers are bodies that are not states, such as the UN can send an observer, UNESCO can send an observer, etc., etc. I had the honor of serving as academic advisor of this body for 5 years. When Professor Bauer, who was among the fathers of this organization, he turned 80. And his wife said, Yudele, enough is enough. Now you will find someone else to run around instead of you. So he took me by the hair, and I served for 5 years. So what I'm telling you is firsthand. Okay, but the working definition did not start with the IHRA. I had to say what it is because these are the first words. But the birth of the definition happened in 2005. And this is a totally different and more complicated story. What happened? Why in 2005? Why do you need a definition of anti-Semitism? You can open any lexicon, any encyclopedia, whatever, and you will find the definition of anti-Semitism, as they define everything under the sun. But first of all, these definitions that you find in encyclopedias and lexicons, etc., were commissioned by the editorials of these books, books to be, commissioned from scholars, academics, and each of them in his place and on time wrote a definition. Ours, the definition we're speaking about today, is a different thing. It was worded, defined, elaborated on by many bodies, by a large number of bodies and a large number of individual scholars. Each of us contributed something. It was coordinated in New York by the American Jewish Committee under the leadership of a rabbi whom perhaps you know, Rabbi Andrew Baker. It was collected from all over, elaborated, sent back again and again. We disputed here and there. Go get the agreement of so many bodies to a definition. It's difficult, but we got there. Now, so first of all, it's different because it's a joint cooperation and work. But I didn't yet answer the question, why 2005? And it so happened that in 2001, which means 21 years ago, in 2001, there was a conference convened by the United Nations in Durban, South Africa. It still is until today, a most defamed conference, because what happened was that, again, people came from all over the world, huge numbers, only media. There were some 16,000. There were thousands of NGO members. There were thousands of diplomatic corps and delegations of the states. There were at that time 162 member states. And this conference was supposed to be a UN conference against racism. Why against racism? Because during the 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, after the reunification of Germany, there was a wave of refugees coming from the southern hemisphere, Africa, South America, Far East to, this is the poor half of our globe, into the richer northern half of the globe, into the richer industrial countries, and it was quite a wave of millions of immigrants, and the question was, how do you treat them? What rights do you give them, etc., etc. Racism started, especially on the side of the right, and the left said, but you have to accept them, people looking for better future, we have to take care of them. The right said, no, they're ruining our culture. A big debate, and it was necessary to have a conference to set the record right. What are the rights? What do we do with them, etc. Yofi. So we gather. I had the honor, but not the pleasure. It was a horrible conference. I had the honor of serving as a delegate in our foreign ministry delegation. Okay, we go to Durban, Africa, and it starts, and there are speeches and this and that, and before you know it, before you could say Jack Robinson, in 2 days, the conference forgot, they all forgot that they came here to deal with the refugees and the rights, etc., and it turned into an anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish terrible event, with plaques saying Hitler was right. We had a press conference, they threw at us books and oranges and whatever. And what happened? In 2 days, you know how much money and preparations were put into this conference, and showing it all went away. So I went to went up to the person, the Belgian ambassador to the UN, who happened to chair one of the big rooms. And in the intermission, I say, sir, what's going on here? You have put, all of us have put so much effort in preparing this conference, and before, it's an anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish tirade. They were selling Mein Kampf. You wouldn't believe it. They had to put on us security. The security was all over us all the time. There were demonstrations in the streets. At that time, there were a good number of Muslims in Durban, and Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, sent them some $1 million to put up demonstrations. And he said, Meidele, you know, if you are speaking to an idiot, he says, Meidele, listen to this. He didn't say Meidele because he speaks French, but something close to that. And he said, listen to this. We came here 2-3 days ago. We realized very quickly that a conference in which you have to take care of the rights of minorities, refugees, etc., would mean in a short while that African countries will demand compensations from the countries that colonized them, okay? The United States will have to compensate for the millions of slaves who were shipped from Africa there. He said, do you know what Belgium took from Congo? Do you know what happens if they start asking for compensations? We'll be bankrupt in a day. Portugal and Brazil, Spain, South America, we will go bankrupt. And so what's the easiest solution? To pick on Israel and on the Jews. And this is how it went. It was horrible. So after this, 2 days after it ended, the conference ended, the Twin Towers fell. So it was a whole attack, well planned, well financed. So it is the end of 2001, and the Durban conference had an after effect of the increase of anti-Semitism. A new kind of anti-Semitism, which we called new anti-Semitism. It was more Muslim. Its management and handling went from the Christian arena to the Muslim one. It was more violent. It came from the street. It was different, and it went on increasing. So much so that in 2004, violent cases compared to 2003 doubled. And I can assure you of that because since 1992, we in Tel Aviv University are monitoring new anti-Semitism closely, case by case. We have a huge website with all of this. You are kindly invited to look at it. Okay, 2004, the German government, which always feels responsible, we know why, convenes another conference in Berlin, like a contra to the Durban conference. And one of the decisions is, there were many, legislation, education, but one of them was, we need a definition. We need a definition of anti-Semitism that would fit the new situation and will give us a tool to tackle it, to legislate against it, to bring matters to court, etc. Okay, so the effort I told you about among institutes, scholars, we all sent suggestions, they were gathered, they were elaborated on, and at the end of 2004, we had this, more or less, this definition. I'll say in a minute why more or less. In 2005, the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, has another conference in Spain, Cordoba, and they adopt the definition. So it was first adopted internationally in 2005 as a reaction to the increase in the violence of anti-Semitism that started in Durban. This is how it came into being. Okay. 2005, it is internationally known. It is put on the website of a body of the European Union. It is kept in the website. It's being translated to some 20 languages. It is something, it is already a known issue. What was its use? What was it good for since 2005? Since 2005, it was used in order to train police officers, those to whom Jews come with a complaint and say, listen, this and this was done to me, I am filing a complaint. So they have to know what they're talking about, what's the definition. It was used for education. It was not used in court as something you could rely on in court. You couldn't come to court and say, dear judge, this and this was done, and here we have a definition. No. Please go on with the title, which says, about the IHRA non-legally binding working definition. This document is not legally binding, which means you cannot go to court with it. But you can come to court in a country that has laws against anti-Semitism or Holocaust denial. Today there are about 25 such countries. And you can go to court in countries which have laws against racism. And you can say, because there was a 1994 a decision of the UN that anti-Semitism is a form of racism. Anti-Semitism is a form of racism. So you could come to court and say, listen, this is anti-Semitism, which is clearly racist. Please refer this to the existing law. And so it is non-legally binding, but it has use as a supplementary document, a supporting document in court. And so it went, a few years went by, and it started to catch and to be a tool. And many Muslim organizations did not like it one bit. And they put pressure on this European Union body that had it on its website. And before we knew it, one clear day, the definition is gone from the website. It's not there anymore. So we run to them and say, Gewalt, where did the definition go to? It was there a day ago. We changed our website. It is a non-paper. Never heard this term before. It is a non-paper. So he said, well, what exactly is a non-paper? It is put on paper? No, it's a non-paper in the sense that this body has not really debated it and agreed upon it, showing it's gone. Okay, what do we do now? It's a useful tool. It's something that you have to develop, and not only keep it as it is, but develop further. Okay. So when I say we, I mean all this group who did it, the activists, those who we are in touch with. We said, okay, they don't want it, never mind. Lo Alman Israel. We'll go to another institute, and the IHRA decided to take a good look at it. They have a committee to deal with anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and okay, they debated, and in 2016, Bauer was already 90 and not 80. And we, in Bucharest, the IHRA has a chair every year. Every year, another country is the chair. Just 1 year, because it's an enormous expense. You have to host twice a year all the delegations, hundreds of people, to give them a hotel, this, that. So once is enough for many years. And it was, this year it was in Bucharest. I came to, I wasn't academic advisor anymore, 5 years, widely enough. And I came, and other, of course, all of them, in honor of Bauer's 90th birthday. You know that today the man is 96 and a half. Yeah, and he goes like a house on fire. I'm telling you, if there is an irritating article in Haaretz, and they have many irritating articles in Haaretz, an important daily, before you start thinking, well, should I answer? What should I answer? You get up in the morning, Bauer already sent an answer. Okay, it's 2016. The IHRA convenes in Bucharest. There are many debates. And one by one, the countries decide to adopt it. Again, I'm saying adoption. This is the term, because it's not legally binding. It's not enacting or confirming. It's just adoption. And there are, perhaps I shouldn't tell you, but one country remained stubborn and did not want to adopt. No. We overcame the opposition and the objections of Ireland and Belgium and others who are strongly anti-Israel and sometimes very anti-Jewish as well. And one country remains there, and the chairperson turns to the delegation and said, listen, would you like to be the only country that would jeopardize all this effort? If so, okay, but we'll publish it tomorrow all over the world. Shoin, they called the Foreign Office, came back and said, okay, we agree. 2016, it was adopted. Now, we were three, the chairperson, me, and the person called Mark Weitzman, who perhaps is known to you as one of the main persons in the Wiesenthal Center. And we, the three of us, took the 2005 definition and adapted it just a little bit, because the definition is not to be changed. Once we got an agreement of everyone, you'll never get it again for changes over. It's not to be changed. But we managed to move a few sentences to more logical positions, and it was accepted and adopted by the countries. Then there were 31, I think, and that's it. Since then, the definition is called the IHRA definition. But you will know better that it started much earlier. It was adopted by the IHRA, and it is a tool that serves for police training, to identify cases, to classify cases, for education, for debates. Debates about identity, about nationality. And why is that? Where do these debates come from? After 2016, a process of more adoptions began. More and more countries started adopting. The UK, Theresa May, who was then Prime Minister, decided to be the first. So the UK is a member of the IHRA, but the IHRA obliged all its member countries to adopt it publicly, again, individually, each country. So a process began of adoptions and more adoptions, and it grew. In each case, when a country wanted to adopt it, there was a debate in the parliament. For instance, in the French, in the Assemblée Nationale, there was quite a debate on a very high level that originated in the definition about identity, about nationality, about the moral obligation of countries to help minorities. And then they decided yes, and France adopted it 3 times. The parliament, the government, and Emmanuel Macron, the president, as well. And it so went on in many countries. And slowly but surely, and I don't know why, I really cannot answer, but during Corona years, the adoptions went on in a much higher speed, more and more. And you know which number did we reach? I checked it before coming. We have right now 904 governments, municipalities, universities, a lot of universities, many. Local council, we said, universities, municipalities, governments, NGOs, religious institutes, etc., all adopting the definition. So it's a tool. It has become known, and with the debates and with the decisions and with declarations of leaders, so we have today 904. When we'll reach the 1,000, I hope it will not be too long from now, we'll come out again with a worldwide report, 1,000 adoptions. Okay? So far quite good, but as always, the continuation is always more complicated. But first, let us take a look at some of its main points. Okay? You can speak the introduction, because the introduction speaks about the IHRA, and this I've already told you. Now, you get to the place where it says the working definition of anti-Semitism. And you can skip these 2. This says that the IHRA decided to adopt it. Yofi. On May 26, 2016, the plenary in Bucharest decided to. And now you have this box, which is something that we invented in Bucharest, because here you have the gist of the definition. And what did we achieve by that? There were countries who still debated. But they were ready to adopt the box, the concise definition, and then go, and we said, okay, adopt this, and then go on arguing the examples. So we have a box, we have a few important sentences, and we have 11 examples, 4 of which relate to when anti-Zionism and anti-Israelism are in fact anti-Semitic. And this is the source of what is going on today. So, they decided to, and I'm reading to you from the box, it says, they decided to adopt the following non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Okay, let me come back to the first line, which says, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Now, I want to tell you discreetly that I didn't like the word hatred. Why hatred? Hatred is a very strong word. It's a very emotional word. You could use other words. I suggested hostility. Hostility toward Jews. Hatred is, I felt it's too strong. And also, as a researcher of anti-Semitism, as everyone knows, you don't have to be an anti-Semite in order to do anti-Semitic acts, in order to put up an anti-Semitic demonstration, in order to write or move people, to write against Jews or move people, because you don't have to be an anti-Semite. You can know and understand that anti-Semitism is a good tool. It's a political tool. It's a religious tool. And you use it, even though you know very well that, okay? So that you personally, you're not really against Jews, but you can use it. You see? The reality is more complicated than you hate Jews and you go against them and that's it. The others don't know. There are many people who use it, but they themselves are not fanatic anti-Semites. So I didn't like that. It didn't help me. They put hatred and that's it. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jews or non-Jewish individuals and or their property. Why does it say against non-Jewish as well? Anyone has an idea? Why, let's say someone goes along the street and he attacks someone. Why does he attack him? Because he thinks that this is a Jew.
Perception of
The
perception.
Exactly. It's like the way he looks, he's perceived as a Jew. Okay, so you come from behind, you attack it, you hit him, you shout whatever you shout. No, showing the person is not Jewish. He happens not to be Jewish, but the act itself is anti-Semitic. Why is that? Because you thought he's Jewish and you attacked him because of that. So the motivation is what counts. If you were motivated to attack someone thinking he's a Jew, happened not to be a Jew, Nebuchadnezzar was hit. This always reminds me, you know, I was born in Buenos Aires and I keep track of what is going on. You remember that there were two horrible bombings of the embassy and of the Daya, the Jewish organization, and many people were killed, and our ambassador said, there were so and so many Jews killed and other innocent people. And other innocent people, which means Jews are not innocent. He said, so and so Jews and other innocent people. And so, this is an anti-Semitic act, and therefore it is included here to a Jewish community, institution, and religious facilities. Now we go to the examples, but before we go to the examples, there are a few important sentences that are also part of today's debate. To guide the IHRA in its work, the following example may serve as illustrations. Manifestations may include the targeting of the state of Israel conceived as a Jewish collectivity, which means if your perception of Israel is that it is not a country just as any other country, but a Jewish state, that's okay. This is a Catholic state, this is a Muslim state, this is a Jewish state. Conceived as a Jewish state, a collectivity. However, listen to this. Criticism of Israel, similar to that leveled against any other country, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. Zu gesund. If criticism is like any other criticism, yeah, this and this we don't like, this policy was not okay, this deed was not okay, okay, so that's fair criticism. Anti-Semitism frequently charges Jews with conspiring to harm humanity, and it is often used to blame Jews for things go wrong, why things go wrong. It is expressed in speech, writing, visual forms and actions, and deploys sinister stereotypes and negative character traits. This story you know. Okay, so what is the importance of these sentences? The targeting of Israel as a Jewish collectivity, and this important sentence that says, criticism of Israel similar to that leveled against any other country cannot be regarded of anti-Semitism. So when can it be regarded? We'll have example and we'll see. Okay? Now, here is you can already see today's debate springing out of this sentence, because what do those who oppose the definition and say that it should be discarded, should be changed, it is no good, it is a tool for Israel, it is a tool for Jews living abroad, especially in the States, who have double loyalty, ta-ta-tam. And they say, what do you mean criticism? Whatever happens to Jews, whatever is being said on Israel, they say anti-Semitism. But it's not so. It's not so. It's an accusation, which is rampant today. But not everything that is being said or every criticism is regarded indeed as anti-Semitism. Now, if you turn the page, we are coming to the examples. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, media, school, workplace, etc., could, taking into account the overall context, include, but are not limited to. And now you have 11 examples. We are not going to read all of them. We are just mention the gist of them and come to the 4 main problematic ones. Okay. Calling for, aiding, justifying killing and harming Jews, ta-ta-tam, of course, anti-Semitic. Mendations, dehumanization, demonization, stereotypical allegation, of course. Okay? World Jewish conspiracy, Jews controlling the media economy, you know that story. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person. Which means if one single Jewish person does this and that, and you blame it on all the Jewish people, this is anti-Semitism. When can I take an example? Madoff. Okay, Madoff did this and that. But the anti-Semitic material published around it accused all Jews of being rich. Well, that's not so terrible. Being rich, being conspirative, twisting the law, cheating your own brothers. It turned from the fault of one person to a general Jewish fault. So this is what this item says. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined, etc., or even for acts committed by non-Jews. Sometimes acts are committed, again, by non-Jews. But Jews are blamed of motivating them, of manipulating them. Now, these are the 3 first ones, which are quite obvious. Then you come to denying the fact, scope, mechanism, such as the gas chambers, or intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the Nazis, etc. Denial is anti-Semitic. And let me explain that. Why denying is anti-Semitic? You can say deniers, which are an object or an issue for another lecture, deniers say, okay, my opinion is that the Holocaust did not exist. Now, you had the heydays of deniers were from the middle of the 80s to the middle of the 90s. Then there was a hard core of some 20, 30 deniers in various countries who knew each other. They scratched each other backs. They published he published you and you published back, and they had an organization the main logistic place was in California, in Torrance, California. They collected money, they had a journal, they had conference, this and that. And then their main idea was that the Holocaust didn't exist the way Jews think. Today, and this is an issue for another lecture, there are other types of denial. They are no longer leading this line. There was legislation against them. And why was legislation against them? And why it is thought that this is anti-Semitic? These are not violent. Deniers of the Holocaust are not violent people. They write and they express their opinion. But it is anti-Semitic in the sense that what in fact are they saying? They are saying that the Jewish people, well organized, well financed, took the world by its throat, in Germany first of all, and sold them a story that has never existed. And on the basis of this story, the Jews get a lot of money, compensations. Israel gets goods and weapons and compensations, as reparations as well. There is a difference. And they took the world a hostage by this story that has never happened. So what you're doing is you are blaming the public, the Jews in this case, of being liars, inventors, extorters of goods and of money. So you are creating a horrible image of a public. And this is definitely a good reason to bring them to court. You know that Deborah Lipstadt, Debbie Lipstadt, who was, you know her, she was appointed by President Biden a special envoy on anti-Semitism. It took a year to finish the appointment. There was a lot of controversy here among Republicans and Democrats, etc. She is a special envoy. She thinks it should not be a matter for the court. But, okay, that's her opinion. I not only believe it is, I saw cases in which it helped. Deniers were brought to court, and after that, they calmed down a bit. It curtailed their activity. So, denial of the Holocaust, because of depicting such a terrible image, collective one, of Jews, is anti-Semitism. Okay. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust, this we said. Accusing Jewish citizens, listen to this, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide, namely the interests of your community, than to the interests of their own nations. This, the definition says, is anti-Semitic to say so. The Jews, that there are Jews, citizens of countries, that are actually more loyal to Israel than to their own countries. The definition thinks that this is an accusation that is basically anti-Semitic. This is also an origin of many debates. People say, why is this anti-Semitic? It's a fact. There are Jews who are more loyal to Israel or who put the interest of their Jewish communities and the money they collect and their activities, etc., before the interests of the country that they live in. Okay, please give it a thought. We can speak about it later again. We have, now we come to 4. The 5th one is not that much, but here we come to these items in the definition, the examples, that ask when anti-Zionism and anti-Israelism, when is it in fact anti-Semitic? Okay, and it says, denying the Jewish people the right of self-determination, by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor, that it goes against the Palestinians, etc., denying them a self, or us, our right to self-determination. This has become really, during the 80s, 90s, parallel to the heydays of the gross denial of the Holocaust. It has become quite an issue because during these years, the UN, the United Nations, accepted many new countries, especially, as we said, after the fall of communism, after the reunification in Germany, the political map changed, and many new countries were admitted to the United Nations. Many among them were island states in the Pacific, for instance. States that count 30,000, okay? But they have a flag, they have a hymn, they have a finger in the United Nations. And Gewalt Jews, we are 3,000 years old, but our self-determination is still debated. So Israeli ambassadors to the UN, Jewish organizations tried the best to change the situation in which our self-determination, Zionism as a national movement, were still not considered kosher. Okay. Applying double standards by requiring of Israel, a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. You come with demands that you do not come with to other nations. This is double standard. Why to Israel and not? You know that if you take and count the decisions of the so-called, I'll emphasize that, the so-called Human Rights Commission of the United Nations, 95% of all complaints and decisions go against Israel. China, Iran, Libya, Saudi Arabia, etc., get 5%, if at all. Then, before you get real angry, you have to check the composition of this Human Rights Commission. Who sits on this commission? All those who know nothing about human rights, and these are China, Iran, Libya, Saudi Arabia, etc. Saudi Arabia is a bit better today, etc., etc., etc. They are sitting there, and they are voting against Israel automatically. Now, before I go on to to the next one, I told you that I was member of the Israeli delegation to Durban. Okay, we representatives of states were sitting in a big hall. There were a few big halls, and we're sitting in a big hall. And at a certain session, the chairperson was Iranian. Okay, so the issue for debate was a sentence which said, "The Holocaust, with a capital H, should never be forgotten." Okay, it's a good sentence. But all Arab countries wanted to vote against it. And they had an alternative. The Holocausts, with an S at the end, and no capital H, Holocausts should never be forgotten, which means there are many Holocausts that were perpetrated against African countries, Arab countries, this, that, all over the world. Why just the Jews and why just the Holocaust? Oh, it was my job to try to defend this sentence. Okay, what can a person do? Gewalt. You are standing in front of the Muslim Arabs at that, Muslim countries at that time counted 52 countries. So automatically, you had 1/3 already against you. So I ran from morning to night. First of all, I enlisted the Latin American countries. I spoke Mameloshan, and I enlisted then the Western, like Canada, United States, England, etc., etc. And I ran from morning tonight, and I had a deal with the ambassador of Guatemala, which is very friendly to Israel always. A very nice lady, and we decided in the intermission, we wrote another sentence, and we said, the Holocaust, capital H, that's a must, that's a mitzvah, only capital H. The Holocaust and many other tragedies of our time should not be forgotten. And showing everyone will be happy. Okay, and we made a deal that when this starts, she will put up the finger as if it dawned on her that minute, and she'll say, okay, I have a suggestion. So we come back to the hall, and the Maise starts. And the Iranian is the chairperson, and I am trying to defend my sentence. He said, yeah, Israel, you wait a minute. There are, before me, he gave the floor to, and that's not an exaggeration, that's exactly how it happened. He gave the floor to Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Tunisia, Egypt, Sudan, etc., etc., etc. And then he looked at his watch and said, Israel, you know, the debate has only 20 minutes, which was not true. He invented it on the spot. The event was allocated 20 minutes, 19 minutes were gone. You have a minute to tell us, why is it so important to have the Holocaust with a capital H, etc.? So I used the minute and pushed in whatever I can, and the Guatemalan lady said, listen, I have a suggestion. God bless her. And she gave the suggestion that we decided on in the corridors before that, and we had it voted for. But don't be too happy. A few months later, it was turned over in another conference in New York. So this is a clear case of a double standard. I was given a minute. All countries against it were given all the time. Okay, I go to the other one, using symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, claims of Jews killing Jesus, or blood libel to characterize Israel or Israelis. Drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazi. There is no worse anti-Semitism than that. Holding Jews, this is the last one, it's not exactly a case of Israel, I think. Holding Jews collectively responsible for actions of the state of Israel. This is really, you know what happens. Prime Minister Rabin chases away Hamas people to Lebanon, and then there is an Iran bombing in Buenos Aires. The Israeli governments know full well, no matter these are left or right or whatever, that what we do, those who pay the price are Jews abroad. Anti-Semitism accelerates when there are more complaints against Israel, when Israel does this and that, you are paying the price. And it is really a very heavy feeling, and it's always a fierce debate in the Knesset, in the government, in the media. What Israel does has a direct bearing on the fate and on the well-being of Jews abroad. And it is being shown and demonstrated one time after the other. But I'm not sure, and the definition says that holding Jews, punishing them, holding them accountable for what Israel is doing is definitely anti-Semitism. Okay, we got to the end of the examples, and now you know why there is a debate. The debate today exists mainly in the academia on its left side. Leftists on the academia attack the definition and say, this is a tool in the hands of Israel. This is a tool to gather the Jews and unite them and make them collective, whether Jews want it or not. Israel uses it as a tool to hush and to silence criticism against it regarding its treatment of Palestinians. But you can criticize whatever you like. There is a definition all these years, and criticism is rampant from day to night. Not only that, in Israel, all citizens have criticism morning to night. It didn't silence anyone. Give me an example, where did it silence any criticism? But they are adamant. They produced an alternative definition, another one. They didn't catch up. This one is going on, as I told you, being adopted. But there is an academic debate, especially on campuses, especially in media, in academic journals, etc. They oppose fiercely the definition. They don't like it one bit, and there is a debate going on between those who defend the definition and those who are against it. And this is more or less the situation today. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a little time for questions. Or Dr. Porat. Yes, go ahead.
Do you think the Abraham Accords have lessened anti-Semitism in the Middle East and increased anti-Semitism in China and Russia and other countries?
Increased in China? Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, yes, the Abraham Accords are really a turning point in development, a positive development in the Middle East, there's no doubt about it. We have visitors suddenly from Bahrain. You know, Bahrain, for instance, adopted the definition. There is there an institute of research which adopted the definition. And now they are about to put up a Holocaust museum. I came here via Dubai with Emirates company. The captain is speaking Arabic. Listen, it's like the chauffeur of the Messiah. The captain is speaking Arabic. It did change atmosphere and did change the situation. Morocco is already on its way, Saudi Arabia. So it is the situation in this case is much better, but you have a point that those countries who are against the accords don't like it and increased their activity. You said China. China, there isn't really anti-Semitism in China. It's a political matter, Israelis, the Jewish people, but it's not exact. They don't really know the issue. India either, Japan, there was a period of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic publications, but in the Far East, it's not exactly anti-Semitism. In India, they say we have some 20,000 gods. Okay, one more, one less. Okay, but so it's not exactly anti-Semitism, but it's definitely politics. Yeah.
Yes.
In the debate over this definition, you say the opponents put forward an alternative.
Yes.
Could you summarize that alternative for us briefly?
Well.
Do they have a statement in 2 sentences or 3?
Well, when you come home, you Google the Jerusalem Declaration. It is called the Jerusalem Declaration, which we think is a hell of a chutzpah, because no one in Jerusalem, the government, the Knesset, whoever, supported this. But it was convened, they had a conference, and it came about in Jerusalem, that's true. What they are saying is that they go against the sentence that says that any fair criticism is not regarded anti-Semitic, And they say that Israel and Israelis use anti-Semitic in any case, anywhere, anytime. Whatever you say, prime ministers get up and say, boop, you're an anti-Semite. Okay, so this is one point they don't like. And the other one they say, which we think is not there anywhere. They say that giving self-determination to Jews and the Zionist movement hampers the self-determination of Palestinians. Why is that? They have the self-determination, we have our self-determination. Anyone can struggle for his self-determination. Why is that on the account of their self-determination? But this is what they say. This is a second point. And there is a lot in this Jerusalem Declaration being said about what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. Yeah.
Yes, Jan, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. In regarding to the legal aspects and the laws of denial, are these tried in international law, or are they tried within the countries that they are brought up in? And what are has anybody decided what are the punishments of these? Is it an international punishment, or is it by country or by state?
Okay. Thank you. You hit the nail on its head, because I'm right now in the business of updating legislation worldwide against anti-Semitism and the Holocaust denial and putting it into an updated publication. Mostly the laws are local, domestic laws, and there are punishments. In general, or in most cases, the punishment for Holocaust denial is 3 years in prison. Okay, this is the way in Austria, in Germany, Mexico, France, in a line of countries. As I told you, there are 25 countries. But there are also international accords, such as in the European Parliament. The European Parliament does have a clause on denial, but in their case, not to be working on only for the Jewish case. The idea is that a denial of genocide is also against the law. In some countries, and again, it is in an international accord, but it goes according to domestic cases. For instance, the Armenian genocide, okay? The United States recognized them. France recognized it. Other countries don't want. They are not. They don't want to jeopardize their relations with Turkey. Okay, and it goes by the country. If the country thinks this is a genocide, then it is against the law to deny it. So it is local, and there are definitely punishments.
Yes, more.
Dr. Porat,
Yeah.
you didn't mention the influence that the media has on anti-Semitism, and generally, I can talk to some of the newspaper articles. We see where the report is that Israel bombed a building, but the headline is Israel bombed a building, but they don't talk about it was in retaliation for 1,000 rockets that were fired. Mm-hmm. New York Times is a particular example of a slanted reporting.
Absolutely.
What accountability or what responsibility do they have, and how does this definition influence or get them to change their behavior?
It doesn't. It doesn't. The New York Times is an independent, privately held newspaper, and you cannot do any formal activity against it. And they go on day, and the BBC, and especially The Guardian. Whatever you read there, please twist it 180 80 degrees, and then you will know what happened. They are horrible. But yes, sometimes it is being used, especially in letters to the editors. In big letters to the editors saying, listen, you said this and that, but we have an example, we have a case that goes against for what you are saying. It's not only that. They, very popular weapon is to say that Israel bombed the building, and you can think that everyone living there was killed. But no, there is this custom or order of the IDF that is called Hakesh Bagag, a knock on the roof, which is warning the people living in the building. Sometimes we have the telephones. Sometimes you have an intermediator who goes there to warn them to get out of the building before it's being bombed. This the New York Times never heard of. But it still is not a tool to your question that you really can force the New York Times to change what they're doing. If you find a way to change them, you will get a Nobel Prize.
Maybe one more.
Yes, in that vein, is there a way to use the definition in the law as it's written to counteract or to charge those that speak this way against the free speech? You know, because they're going to say that this is freedom of the press and free speech. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to use the definition in the law?
Well, there is a possibility, because what those of us who support the definition say, that freedom of speech, which is very much an issue in the Jerusalem Declaration, well, you are denying freedom of speech, you are not allowed to say this and that. But we are saying, and in the United States you have a good definition as well. What we are saying is there is freedom of speech, but not freedom for incitement. Freedom of incitement is another thing, and you have here a definition that is called hate speech, okay? Hate speech or hate crimes. When you can prove that this is a hate speech or hate crimes, you can take to court with or without the definition. Okay? It doesn't have to be free speech.
Just one or two, yeah, Sally, go ahead.
One more quick. You've spent your whole life teaching about the Holocaust and Yad Vashem, and yet you read in the papers today that in America, you say 2/3 of young students never heard of the Holocaust, and 1/4 of them...
It's not my fault.
So, what I'm asking you, we had Professor Snyder was here maybe 12 years ago, and he wrote the book on tyranny, and he says, history teaches, history warns, history gives us hope. So I'm asking you, of a lifetime of education and work on Holocaust and anti-Semitism, how hopeful are you for the future?
Well, not too much. Not too much. To speak frankly, what I see today, and it's not just anti-Semitism or not just not knowing about the Holocaust. Listen, there was a survey in London among high school students about Churchill, World War II. Churchill, for these students, if they ever heard about him, is more or less, let's say, he dates back to King David's days or something. They are an expert on all the singing bands, etc., but World War II, it is a world problem. The IHRA is investing a lot of money. Each country gives fees, and they are collected, and most of them are being given to countries in order to have their teaching of the Holocaust. We invested a lot of money in Lithuania, for instance, in Poland, in countries that were under communist rule when they didn't teach one word about the Holocaust for 50 years. And now it's all new. But There are countries who do teach, and youngsters know, but they are still a minority. You have to invest a lot in that. And if you ask me, is this the last question? Can I kvetch? No. Okay.
It will take way too long. It was gonna, so this
This will be the last.
Okay, so speaking about hope, I think that the way we have been acting so far regarding the struggle against anti-Semitism is not enough. Obviously, it's not enough. It's rampant. I think that opening ourselves to coalitions with other minorities, to speaking about the troubles and tragedies, as we did, and other tragedies should not be forgotten, of others, of having more definitions. For instance, in the IHRA, with the success of this definition and it being adopted and used, etc., we have a new definition against anti-Gypsyism, anti-Tziganism, because the Gypsies, they suffer a lot more than Jews. There are also 13 million. We are now 14 million. We didn't recover after the Holocaust, but we are getting there. We are a bit more than 14. There are 13 million scattered all over. No leadership, no intelligentsia, no education. They suffer the most, but they are not well organized. They don't keep up a good struggle. So we have a definition in their favor. We should have, I think, more definitions. We should open the floor for more cooperations, and not just only us, only Jews. We are the only ones wronged. I think that's not a good policy.
Thank you, Dr. Porat.